Hi, I'm Kelsey Kloboski. I'm a senior digital accessibility specialist here at Accessible Web, and today we're going to be talking about how to replace your accessibility overlay. So for our agenda for our conversation today is first we'll talk about what is an overlay, what do we mean when we talk about accessibility overlays, why remove an overlay, what are some reasons why if you're using an overlay type tool, why it's a good idea to take steps to remove that from your website. And then we'll talk about some tips for creating a transition roadmap for moving away from that overlay, some strategies to support with that transition, and wrapping up with what comes next after you've removed the overlay. What are some strategies so you can continue to maintain a strong digital accessibility experience on your website? So first, what is an overlay? So this definition is from the overlay fact sheet. Quote, overlays are a broad term for technologies that aim to improve the accessibility of a website. They apply third-party source code, typically JavaScript, to make improvements to the front-end code of the website, end quote. So this is from the Overlay Fact Sheet, which is a website that goes into a lot more detail about overlays, describing them, including some lists of examples. So if you're interested in learning more about these tools and deeper details on some of the topics we're going to talk about today, that's a great resource. But some things to point out about this definition is essentially this is talking about a tool that comes into a website after kind of a post-production tool. It comes in after a website has already been published, even after the website is rendered for the user, and is going to overlay accessibility fixes on top of the website, sometimes changing content, sometimes changing code, but it's essentially bringing in additional changes after the website renders for the user. A common warning sign that a tool is an overlay is if it's using something like the phrase a single line of code to fix all of your accessibility issues, to make you ADA compliant, to make you WCAG conforming, meaning the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. If anything, a tool that's saying it's a single line of code to do all of these things and is offering that you're going to be perfectly in conformance, perfectly accessible, that is a warning sign that it's an overlay tool and it's over-promising what it's going to be able to deliver. Some overlay tools also will offer additional pop-up tools for modifying the website. So things like the user can change the text color or font size. They can change the colors of the website. So sometimes we see some pop-up user configuration tools associated with overlays. But a lot of the functionality that we're talking about here is thinking about tools that are promising that they're going to come in and automatically fix issues on your website by loading a line of code or using their plugin in your website. So why remove an overlay? So there's three really key reasons why we recommend not using an overlay as your digital accessibility solution. First is that overlays are harmful. They interfere with users' technology and settings that they have used and customized on their own end. Overlays can disrupt or modify those settings in ways that the user may not be aware of or may not expect, or just makes it different from how the user is used to interacting with websites that respect their settings and their technology. Fixes from an overlay may be inaccurate or at worst may even introduce other issues. We see this really commonly with things like an overlay that is trying to provide image descriptions. It may provide an inaccurate image description. It may focus on details that aren't relevant to the purpose of the image, or it may hallucinate information that isn't there in the image. So particularly it's an issue we can sometimes see with AI type solutions or AI type overlays. Overlays may also slow the website, especially since a lot of these rely on JavaScript. It's more scripting that has to run on page load, and it can cause the website to load more slowly, or it can create a situation where the website loads and then the overlay changes finish loading and users experience a big change in the website, a big jump. Like the content changes quite a bit as they're already working through or navigating through the site. So either of those is not a great outcome, either slowing down the website overall or causing a major change to your website a few seconds into when the user has already started interacting with it. Secondly, overlays are incomplete. Overlays can be successful at fixing some issues, but not all. And as we mentioned, sometimes they may fix one issue, but introduce another at the same time. An overlay cannot guarantee full WCAG conformance. and an overlay may fail to load. Like for that same issue, if it's running additional scripting to run, if that script fails to load, then none of those, even the accessibility fixes it is making, none of them get implemented. And then users are left with whatever accessibility or inaccessibility is present on the baseline website without any changes from the overlay. And finally, overlays are not a legal defense in terms of things like complaints or lawsuits related to the Americans with Disabilities Act, or other legal actions related to digital accessibility. Legal settlements may typically not allow overlays as a solution for achieving the goals of the settlement or for meeting the terms of the settlement. We're also seeing state laws that are starting to come into play that do not allow overlays as a solution for digital accessibility. So that could be a trend that we'll start to see in more states over time as well. And also the Federal Trade Commission fined a major accessibility overlay company for misrepresenting their tool, and they had to pay a fine. That happened in 2025, and it was exactly around that issue of the tool promising to fully fix accessibility, promising to fully be WCAG conformant, and were found that that was misrepresenting what the product was able to do. So yeah, when you're ready to start moving away from an overlay tool, there's definitely some steps that we recommend as to be part of your transition roadmap. First is to publish an accessibility statement. And there's two key pieces of information that your statement can include that can really support your overall goal of digital accessibility. First is to provide ways for users to report barriers. When a user encounters a barrier, have a contact method where they can reach out, where they're invited to reach out and report a barrier so that you can address it, and have a process in place for how to triage and address any barriers that are reported in a timely manner. We have some other webinars about this that go into more detail on this topic, so I encourage you to check out our YouTube channel for our archive. But definitely the accessibility statement is a great place for those contact methods to live and to be explained so that users can find them more easily. Second is to summarize your plan and your timeline for improving accessibility. We really recommend being accurate and transparent, right? Recognizing we're working towards accessibility and having a timeline for when you plan to achieve those goals and to be accountable to achieving those and updating that information if timelines change. Second, in your transition roadmap, we recommend testing without the overlay. So conducting accessibility testing on your website as is before the overlay starts making changes. Sometimes you may do this by setting up your website in a staging environment or setting up a version of the website that doesn't have the overlay. And that's really the best environment to do accessibility testing. And solid accessibility testing can include automated scanning. That's a tool that offers to help identify issues. It's not offering that it's going to fix them automatically without anything from you, but can help fix issues. Being aware that automated scanning is not going to fully catch every issue is why we also recommend including manual review for accessibility, particularly comparing to a technical standard like the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, as well as including user testing with users with disabilities. This three-part method, we think, provides a really well-rounded view of accessibility and helps you understand the accessibility of your core baseline website. And then from there, you can go to step 3 in the transition roadmap, which is to fix the issues at the source. Once you've identified the issues that exist on your core website, then it's time to go in and address them at the source. This can include changes to your content, your design, to your HTML, and to your JavaScript. And by fixing these issues at the source, they're available to users on page load. They don't require any additional loading time in order to be available to your users. They also are going to be much more flexible and more respectful to users' setting, their device settings, the technology that they're using. All of those pieces are going to work a lot better and more effectively when your baseline website is as accessible as possible. Some strategies to keep in mind as part of your transition away from an overlay. First is to set clear accessibility goals. A lot of organizations choose a technical standard, so such as the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, version 2.2 AA or version 2.1 AA. That can be helpful for setting kind of a goalpost or a milestone for your organization to reach. It's also really important to allocate resources for this work that may be things like time or training or additional staff hours in order to address these issues, making sure that enough resources are being allocated to get the issues addressed. Prioritize high impact issues and user flows. This may depend on the type of website that you're working on, but for example, an e-commerce website, a really high priority user flow might be shopping for a product, adding it to your cart, and checking out. So that would be a great set of screens or a great set of user actions to focus on addressing those accessibility issues first, and then working on to other areas of the website to address issues there. And finally is to engage user testing and feedback. This is really the best way to ensure you've closed accessibility gaps, usability gaps, and that you're creating an experience that's going to work well for a really wide variety of people and people who are using your web content in a lot of different ways. So once you've removed your overlay, what comes next? Well, we definitely recommend to continue to maintain and improve accessibility over time is to invest in accessibility, whether that's internally or externally. That might mean internal hiring or adjusting how some of your existing staff are spending their time, budgeting more time, or making it a higher priority on their list to be monitoring and working on accessibility in your products or in your website. Or externally, like partnering with an external vendor or an external accessibility partner in order to understand, monitor, and address any accessibility issues that might be coming up on your website. We also recommend setting up monitoring tools and strategies. So an example of how that might look might be something like monthly scans with an automated tool, biannual manual accessibility reviews, and annual user testing. The details could definitely vary, but having regular and planned assessment and remediation of accessibility is really valuable to maintaining and continuing to improve the accessibility work that you've already done in moving away from an overlay tool. And finally, and maybe one of the last and certainly not least, is to shift left. We really strongly recommend that when you include accessibility as early as process in your product or content lifecycle, that accessibility is going to be easier, more efficient, and more effective at the end of the day. So that's including accessibility in your planning, in your training, and in your process improvements. So as you're making accessibility improvements, think about where could this have been caught or checked or implemented sooner in our process. So including accessibility from planning at the beginning, being sure that the people on your team who are going to be working on your website are trained in the accessibility topics relevant to their roles, such as content writers, developers, designers, and content authors or website content managers. And then seeing what process improvements can help support building accessibility just into the day-to-day workflow, making accessibility business as usual, and it's part of the projects that are coming out, part of definition of done. And that's also going to make it easier to maintain and really reduce that remediation cycle post-production that can happen when we're not considering accessibility till the end. So finally, how accessible web can help. So we would love to be your third-party accessibility partner in improving your accessibility or working with you on moving away from an overlay tool if that's something you're interested in. So some things that we offer that can help with that are web accessibility software, which I believe there is a link in the chat for a free trial. Includes tools for automated scanning, which can be a really valuable portion of your accessibility strategy, as well as offering tools for managing and organizing your accessibility work, as well as tools for performing in-house accessibility manual review. We also offer accessibility audits. If you don't want to do in-house manual review, then we could be a third party to partner with you on that, on conducting full audits against the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. We also offer consulting and training, which can be really valuable for that shift left mentality of bringing in unique trainings for your team or consulting at different portions of your production lifecycle. And we can create voluntary product accessibility template reports or VPATs. And these are reports after we've completed a manual audit. That's where we prepare a report that describes the current accessibility of the website. And that can be really valuable for setting goals and understanding your current status. And with that, that's the end of my prepared remarks. So happy to take questions or comments at this time.